friends, Baltmatrix coming at you, and today we're taking a look at Transformers Studio Series Mixmaster. This is now the 5th Constructicon to be released in the 8 figure set, and I picked this figure up over at Amazon.com, but it should be available at Big Bad Toy Store any day now. The figure itself is modeled in gunmetal gray, a silvery type of gray, brown, or a very, very gray version of brown and black. The drabness of the figure is apparent in all modes, or both modes, and there's very little that pops on this figure. You could argue that this is the Black Ranger of the Constructicon Ranger team. The figure's chest has these accents coming off of it, these little feet and the smokestacks for his cement mixer mode. The smokestacks are the smokestacks I like to put off at an angle, and then the official directions have you putting these all the way up, either pointing up at his head or out to the side like this. I think it actually works better if you point it down. That gives him an X for his mix part, and I like it better. Yes, it gets away in the posability a little bit, but we'll get into that in just a moment. The head sculpt works well, but there's not enough paint to really differentiate any of its features. It's black and silver. That's it. Those are the only colors that we get here, so that does limit the appeal of being able to, look at his face. The figure stands 6 inches to the top of his shoulder armor, and the figure possesses easily the largest wingspan of any of the other figures at 14 inches. If I could hold my arm still enough, you could get an accurate reading. Oddly enough, this figure scales between the other Voyagers and the other Deluxes, specifically the other figures that have already been released. Now, Demolisher and Overlord are going to be leader class figures. That's going to form the bottom torso, crotch, and the upper torso. And then the only other one is Scrapper, and he is going to be a Voyager class figure that is supposed to be in scale with this guy. No figure pictures have been released of Scrapper as of this point. The back of Mixmaster is kind of a hot mess. You've got a lot of textures going on back here, and then you've got what is going to be the mouth of Devastator sticking out of his back. He is also kind of top-heavy with the entire front of the cement mixer just sticking off the back of his shoulders. Posability on this specific figure is hampered due to some severe QC issues. I will be reaching out to the seller on Amazon where I got the figure for a replacement. We'll cover that in just a second, but let's first go through the entire posability, because there's actually quite a lot. Head is on a ball joint that is connected to this hinge here. Each one of the smokestacks is on a swivel, and each one of the little feet is on a swivel. Shoulders are on a hinge joint for up and down movement. However, the figure's right shoulder will not lock into place. That's as far up as it goes. That's the first issue with QC. Then there's a swivel just outside the shoulder, and then underneath that is a hinge for in and out movement, and that big shoulder swivel does the 360-degree movement. A swivel just above what is effectively the elbow, and then the elbow can almost do 90-degree bends, and then the hand is on a hinge. Then the part of the drum that is connected to the forearm is on a hinge and a swivel hinge, and then the top part of the drum is on a series of swivels that allow it to transform correctly. We'll say that. There is no torso articulation, but the hips are a swivel for forward and back, and then a hinge for in and out. The left hinge, or left swivel, locks right here, and I don't know if you can hear that, and it keeps the figure kind of stuck in crotch thrust position. There is a thigh swivel, and then a 90-degree bend at the knee, and then a swivel hinge, or I should say a hinge for the foot. No side-to-side ankle articulation. So the two issues with QC that I have are this left hip that locks for some reason, the shoulder that does not lock into place, and then the other bit of QC has to do with the front of the cement mixer, which contains the giant Devastator face. And the reason I say that this is an issue is there is a lot of flashing on these hooks or clips, and I've had to sand them down multiple times just to get them to connect correctly. When I originally got the figure, it just fell off. It would not hold onto it. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the Devastator head real quick. I'm not going to transform the head into, or the figure into Devastator's head in this review, simply because it's a royal pain. And the QC issue of the one shoulder really hampers it holding together. So to get the head to flip out, first you flip up the front of the vehicle mode, open up the mouth all the way, grab the head and flip it out, then come inside the part you flipped out and flip out these sections, close it up, come into the head, flip out these flanges, and then close that up over the front of the vehicle mode, and that's it. That is Devastator's face. And this works well. I think this works really well. And you can even unhinge his jaw twice like a snake, which is actually kind of cool. Now, the grinder component is not present in Mixmaster. It will be coming with Overload, but this whole section will fold back along the body. So very loosely, this is what we're going to end up with. This is really not the best rendition of it. The legs actually come down and then come down and up in a V to hook into Demolisher. But this is roughly what you're going to end up with. I realize that's not pretty, but I don't care. Fellow reviewer Evangelist discovered that Mixmaster is one of the only figures that can effectively pull off the anime lady laugh. So this figure does have a lot of posability, which is cool. Unfortunately, it's top-heavy, so it just falls over. And yeah, it's problematic, especially with the looseness and the weird locking issue I have with the left hip. So that causes issues with my figure. One thing that I've been trying to do is to get him to do the same, like, armored, sitting down, crouching look that he does in some of his official artwork for the original movie, and I just can't do it. Transformation for Mixmaster is not as difficult as you might think it is, but it is not fun. To start off with, we're going to come down to the legs, put the legs straight out, and then fold them in on these little hinges, and combine the legs up, and just kind of push the feet down a little bit. I realize that this, according to the directions, is not the first step you're going to want to do, but I do this just to prep the rest of the figure, sort of. Next, come up to the head and push it all the way forward like that, and then grab the entire body section and flip it up so that it is in line, or the front of the figure is in line with the bottom of the cab. And then we can take the smokestacks and flip them up, and they will peg into place on these very tiny little pegs. Then, effectively, what we're going to do is just straighten out the arms, and they will snap into place, turn them, and then fold them back along the rest of the body, which you would think is easy. It really isn't, because you have to get a lot of things lined up in place, and that's not fun. So before we move on to that, as you saw, I just flipped the feet all the way back around, and then we could take the little stands and flip them up towards the head, and they will just kind of rest in place there, as you can see. Now for the arms, fold the arms up, and then the wheels will lock into place. Fold the drum all the way up so that we can bring the other drum around and flip it in under like this, and then the inside of the drum will peg into this peg right here. So flip it down, and then flip it up and peg it into place. Come to this drum, fold out the cement spout, and then rotate it out on those two hinges, bring them down, and snap them together, which is a little bit harder because there's this little peg up front that you have to get hooked into inside the shoulder. Otherwise, the drum components will not snap together. Now, that is significantly harder than you might think because the directions suck. So we'll do the same thing on this side. Fold it around, fold it up, fold it out, flip it up, and then snap it into place. Fold the drum up, flip out the chute, fold the drum in and around, peg it into place, line it up so that that inside tab gets there, fold the double hinge out, down, fold the drum down, and then snap it into place, and then we fold the whole section back. The feet will slide into place between the chute and the drum, and then the legs will get the shoulder section will peg into the legs there, and back along the body right there. And believe it or not, this is the hardest part of the transformation because of the bad shoulder. The bad shoulder doesn't want to go down all the way, so getting everything pegged in and everything to stay in place is nigh impossible. But on this side, on the figure's right, it's fine. It's just getting everything lined up is a trifle bit difficult, especially when the feet decide to move on their own. And then many curse words were had during the making of this transformation, I'm sure. Oh, and I screwed up. I forgot to flip the hands up, but you could just force it. And here we have the world's most boring cement mixer. And I am being facetious when I say that. This is just a drab cement mixer. The colors are very, very drab, very construction-esque, but I don't remember ever seeing a gray cement mixer. I'm sure they exist. I just have always seen Caterpillar cement mixers, and those are always bright yellow. So, yeah. And part of the other issue I have with the alt mode is because of the issue with this shoulder, it doesn't line up correctly and sometimes doesn't roll all that well. But I was able to get it so that it rolls okay here. As a Constructicon, this thing works fine-ish, but it is not a fun figure. The robot mode, especially mine with the QC issues, is fiddly, top heavy, and just ugly. It's also not that much fun compared to the other Constructicons. I like the other 4 Constructicons way more than I like Mixmaster, and I'm really, really, really hoping that the next 3 to come out are a lot better than this. This is by far the lowest point in the Constructicons, or of the Constructicons for me. So folks, let me know what you think of this figure down in the comments. Be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons, and be sure to hit the bell so you know when a new video is out. And please be sure to follow me at the link down in the video description to my Patreon. Your monthly financial contribution is going to enable that I'm able to keep buying figures and keep making a little bit of money enough so that I can keep purchasing figures coming in 2020. If you aren't familiar with what's going on with a lot of video reviewers, go onto Google and search YouTube and COPPA, that's COPPA, and read up on that. You'll figure out what's going on pretty quickly. Thank you so much for watching. I have been Baltmatrix, and I will catch you next time.